Hello everyone, good afternoon. Welcome to the second webinar in our webinar series. We completely live again today. And in this webinar, we want to tell you everything about how to grow your revenue and margin with the right pricing insights. In this webinar, the coming 30 to 45 minutes, we would like to tell you everything about the importance of data analytics, the key questions in pricing, and the right insights you can get. And then we're completely live today on LinkedIn and on YouTube. So if you have any questions, you can ask them in the comments. Especially on LinkedIn, we get notifications for it, so we can directly answer your questions in this interactive webinar. But first, I would like to start, set the scene with some wisdom. One of the most famous quotes you see, I think, in the part of data analytics is the quote of Edward Deming. Without data, you're just another person with an opinion. Mr. Edward Deming was a professor, but also a statistic in the past century. He was one of the four runners of the Six Sigma method, creating a method to transform the business effectiveness. And with his quote, he means that if it's really a risk as a manager to ask purely on your instinct, so you should need actually data to make good decisions. People are at risk on acting on biases or false assumptions if they purely act on their assumption. So that's also what we want to put central in this presentation, that if you use data in combination with your experiences, you can make way better decisions. Another thought from McKinsey is a research what they did about the difference between data-driven companies and non-data-driven companies. They found out that data-driven companies are 23 times more likely to acquire customers. It's a big number. 6 times as likely to retain customers and 90 times as likely to be profitable as a result. So these are big numbers and big conclusions you can make, but also more an evidence of what we see is that applying and starting with data analytics in the pricing field and in marketing and sales fields in general is really effective because you see directly a result in your sales and margin. So translated to our current customers in the next slide, you see that our customers that use Simpson for the full potential can get a margin and revenue increase pretty fast, compared to on average 3 to 7%. So it's a pretty good business case if you do this. If you do this good and you get the full potential out of the software. So for who is this webinar? We have two kind of scenarios, which is webinars really interesting for you. We made this webinar especially for pricing, sales, category managers that are currently making their pricing decisions based upon gut feeling and static spreadsheets. It takes a lot of time for you to gather the right data and to get the right insights. If this is recognizable for you, please hang on. A lot of information will be shared, which you will benefit for. Another role in the organization could be that you're a CXO, so CEO, CCO, or CFO, and you are aware of the lack of skills in the company to make the company data-driven or manage your prices properly. You're looking for smart tools, smart ideas that can help your organization data-driven to grow in your revenue and margin. And also for this persona, we have a lot of information and insights in the coming 30 minutes. So what we would like to discuss in this webinar, Vincent will talk a lot after me about the pricing analytics. Why are they so important? And how can you adopt it in a new way of pricing? We will handle the key questions in pricing for C-level and management. We will discuss the pricing data maturity model. We previously discussed it in the previous webinar, but now we will continue with it. We will give you an overview of how to give you a quick start. I think it's really interesting to know how it works, but also how it starts and how you can start tomorrow with improving your pricing. And last but not least, we have a lot of questions and time to answer your questions. So if you have questions, please ask them in the comments on LinkedIn, and we will be notified and we will answer them all in the end of the webinar. My name is Arjen Oosthoek. I'm one of the co-founders of Simpson, and right now I will give the floor to Vincent.
Yes, thanks, Arjen. So my name is Vince Scheling. Currently, I'm the director at Simpson. And in this webinar, I want to start with you on my first sheet. And we're going to focus on why pricing analytics are so important. So what we see is that in organizations there are multiple strategies that are applied to gain better results in the organization. So what we see is that there are multiple choices to be made. So on the left side we see that organizations choose for more lean operations, what leads to an one multiplier to say it in such a way effectiveness. But if we look to the right side, there's also a possibility to invest in controlling to get control for your pricing power. And then we see that the effectiveness is 2 to 3 times more effective than on the lean side. And the ultimate position, of course, is that you can combine setting a lean operation in combination of getting your pricing power under control. So if you see the effectiveness side, based on McKinsey research, we see often 1.5 to 2% financial impact, more or less in the mid to short term. And if you look to the effectiveness of pricing power, if you have the same position and you have pricing power under control, you can get the results of 6 to 8%. So that is already quite a significant difference. But of course, eventually, as we just mentioned, if you can combine these two positions together, then of course there can be a maximum impact on the financial results. But it would require some investment and adoption, of course, of certain technologies that would enable you to get towards this desired position. So to emphasize a bit or to elaborate a bit more on what we see today in a lot of organizations is that the information positions organizations use is quite static. And with the static information position, we mean that what we often see is that, for instance, still a lot of spreadsheets are used to determine pricing. So the numbers in these spreadsheets are often not real-time updated. So it's just filled in, and then based on some macros that are in these sheets are used to make some calculations, and it's even sometimes a risk to change the numbers in these sheets. Another thing that we see is that companies set KPIs based on the experience that they have in businesses of results of last year, but they don't have a full idea of the market potential that they are operating in. So they're based on historical activities that they have done. They just set new goals and work towards those. And a lot of gut feeling is involved in setting these KPIs. And the final one in the static setting that we see is that a lot of businesses also have manual repetitive tasks. What means as much is that they would just buy certain inventory levels or conduct a certain level of business, and that they have a cost feed where they build the business upon, and then just apply a certain markup to set prices to move towards the next step. And these are the 3 most common static positions that we see in businesses. So what we want to do is to create this information position that is then more enriched. So how do you enrich your information position to make better choices? Then you have to apply a new learning model, and this learning model is something that we work on. So what we do is we enrich the data with more internal data, external data, and product dynamics. So internal data can be margins, how much you sell, customers, on which days, etc. If we look at external data, then we look towards competitors, seasonality, weather, and other influences that may have a significant influence on your selling activities. And the other one there where we look at is, for instance, product dynamics. And the product dynamics is where is your brand located? What's your brand position? What's the quality of the product that you are selling? So we are looking more to the dynamics of the products and where it should be positioned. So taking in consideration the more static information, what is quite important, because what we call it's more domain knowledge, right? So most of the businesses we are in business with, they are really a long time active in the market, and they really know how it's operating. So it's very important to use that information position in setting up new environments and algorithms to understand how we can make next steps in that. And on top of it, we also are going to look if there are certain events or other data positions that we can include in a certain model to have to recognize if there are any patterns that we can apply across multiple variables, and then we can only select those who have really a significant influence on the pricing that you are setting. So what we then do is we set new prices, and then we go over this learning loop all the time, again and again and again. And each selling activity that we achieve with the numbers we achieve at that level, on the regions where we are selling, etc., at the time, at the seasonality, we all take this into account to constantly optimize these prices. And this is how we move from static to dynamic to eventually the most desired future position, and that is to become a hyper learning organization where these elements are all combined. So if you look like a visualization, how it looks in our case, or how we work with it to get this insight in this data and start the first step, we first have to collect all these data sources. So what you see here is like that we connect with different systems, that we connect with different data sources, and that we also use, of course, the external data sources. And this is all API based. So we pull this information into our AI platform, where we build a scientific model for each product that you are selling. And we can configure the strategies based on also the knowledge that's already inside the business that you are running. So that is where we configure the scientific models a bit more based on the input that you can deliver, because you have a lot of domain knowledge. Then the output, of course, is the pricing that you can do something with that, or with the information that we have gathered. So what you see here is that the insights would give you the opportunity to learn from the data that's already inside your company, but it can also already be turned into usable pricing levels. So that is what you see on the more right side. So that prices are like set in a new direction based on the data that we collected, and then we instantly inject those new prices into your online stores, so that you can run like new data sets, and to see how positions could be improved or not, or what the result of the calculations is. So in general, why would pricing analytics be so important? If we see what companies, what kind of position they obtain once they have pricing analytics in a proper manner stored, is that we can see that they acquire more insights on customers. So they can, by using pricing analytics, better position the customers, the customer groups, and how they want to deal with these different buyers of their products. Next to that, we see that they can optimize their pricing for value. So by understanding better the behavior and the buying signals of the segments they are serving, they can better position their products. So in certain moments, there's scarcity about certain products, or some products there's more demand for it. So when these situations occur, you maybe want to do something with the pricing of your products to gain more value. So by optimizing these positions and getting these information flows going, you better understand how you can position your products and pricing for value. We can also identify, of course, quick wins, but it's a more general one. And what we also can do is in real time discover which channels are most profitable. So what we often see is that organizations see at the end of a certain period, they consolidate the numbers that they have made, and then they see in which channels they made some sales. So if you combine directly your sales engines and your sales funnels to a software platform, or someone who can index the data, then you can instantly see which platforms are most attractive, are mostly used, and then you can divert some actions or marketing budget towards those channels to even generate more sales. And the other one is what we often see is that companies have promotions, and they have promotions on certain days, of course, in the year. But what we now also see is that based on certain customer behavior, you can also plan promotion based on the data that you already have. So by having insights in the behavior and the behavior of your clients, of customers, but also have, for instance, insights on seasonality, you can also select the moments in a year when you want to execute your promotions, because, for instance, you want to sell more in those periods, or you know which periods are giving you a hard time. So promotions can help you to overcome the dip that you have in a certain period of time. So then we move to some key questions. So if you look, for instance, for a CEO position, so as a CEO, what you want to know from your business, So what we often see is that if we talk about pricing, and we do some, of course, some sessions with the companies that we already support, we see that pricing sometimes hits a multiple department discussion, and there is no unity in the way prices are set. So by making data, giving insights and learning about the data position of the company, we can generate a more general perspective of how the organization is positioning itself through pricing. And what we now often see is that there are multiple visions in a company, what of course is very good. But what would help is if the information position that we share with each other in a company is for everyone the same, so you don't have any biases, or that some departments are more dominant than other ones, and that decisions are made based on those criteria instead of the insights that are available. So this is something where data insights can play a very important role. The other one is that for business owners, it's always nice to know, to have a direction what the maximum potential of your business is. So if you're selling certain products in certain categories, or in the assortments that you have, then you want to know what is the potential of all these assortments that we have, and how can we achieve a position that we maximize, for instance, for margin of revenue, to grow the business in terms of market share, or maybe in liquidity, so that you can start new activities as well. So these are like questions that we help to answer for a CEO. And the final one where we want to give some attention to is that in this time and in these areas that we are living in right now, technology becomes more important, right? So the adoption of big data, and for instance AI, is something that we already heard of a long time, but we see that the adoption is getting is accelerating. But still, it means that we have some challenges with that, because out of these adoptions, of course, we also discover the challenges that companies have for adopting technology like AI and machine learning. So we have identified also out of a Gartner setup how what challenges these businesses have, and the first one is the maturity, of course, of the business. So you need the right skills, the right scope of the data quality, but also the governance structure to, of course, work with such these technologies. So this is a challenge that we often also see in the business where we deliver our support. What we also see is that there is a lot of fear of the unknown. So what is the AI exactly doing, and what is calculating? And is the outcome of the AI really trustable, and can we work with it? And the consequences of using AI and understanding what is happening is also one of the challenges we have to deal with. We think mainly because, and that's also what's standing here, is because the risk of liability, it's hard to measure something like that, right? If it's only the first time that you start working with it, or you're completely new to it. And the last one, what we see is that it's also hard for business to find that starting point. So what business case are we going to use in the software that we are going to apply? So what do we select to see if the results and the outcomes that are presented to us are really generating value where we can build our business upon, and how can we gain like a trust position towards new technology? And then, of course, in line with that, what level of funding would be acceptable when you start working with technologies like AI pricing and generating insights and stuff like that. So if you look towards the CFO, what the challenges a CFO has, then a CFO wants to maybe obtain a certain KPI, or achieve a certain KPI that was set in the beginning of the year. So if you have a large assortment of products and you want to work with your team towards a financial goal, how do you achieve it, right? So what we have built it in Simpson, and this is what you see on the right side, but I don't know how shortly of how good you can see it, but what you can do is you can build scenarios, and in each scenario you can set certain circumstances to build a kind of the prediction of the insights that you want to gain. So what you, for instance, can do is select build a scenario where you select certain products, and these products can be selected, for instance, based on the top 100 products, or the top gainers, or the slow movers, or whatever. So you can make a selection out of your assortment where you are working with. And then you can apply different filters on top of those. So, for instance, you want to select the products who have like the biggest margin or the smallest margin, etc. So you can also make an extra filter on that. And then you make choices on where you want to build the scenario upon. So, do you want to optimize for margin so that you want to have more liquidity in the company to have like for new innovation trials or something else? But you can also optimize for revenue. So this means that you probably are going to to have to execute a strategy to gain more market share. And this is what you then build here, and then you optimize, for instance, for the week or for the month. So there's also an opportunity to do it time period that you want to do it or execute it. And then this scenario is built, and out of this scenario, you get a selection of the products that can be used to execute it, and then you can move towards making a decision if this scenario would suit your business, and if you want to use these insights to eventually achieve the KPIs you have set. So you can then make like a blueprint of the execution of a probability of a strategy, and then give this to one of your managers to operate it and execute it in the field. And so there are also other questions that you could answer. So, in what situation do you want to optimize for revenue, and in what situation do you want to optimize for margin? So, when do you achieve enough market share to change strategies and move towards a margin gain instead of a revenue gain? And the last one that you can answer with insights is also what changes to a pricing model could improve our sales and profits, right? So, how do you make different steps in your pricing to achieve maximum results? And when do you want to change these models of pricing? At what point in time to generate, of course, the maximum potential out of that? And then Arjen will zoom in a bit more on the different manager positions.
Thank you, Vincent. Yeah, as Vincent also already mentioned, is that pricing is a very broad topic. So also more people in the organization can work on this topic or have touch point with pricing. So Vincent just discussed more the C-level persons, but also on the operational side, we have people such as an e-commerce manager, a pricing manager, or category management manager, or a business analyst that all have to do with pricing, but could have different questions you want to answer. And in the module with pricing insights, it's all about getting quick answers to your questions. So, for example, if you're a pricing manager and you're really responsible for executing the strategy and pricing management, you could have questions like, what would be our impact on revenue and margin if we increase our prices with X%? So, for example, you want to have a bunch of products which have probably the same customer behavior, and you want to do a test, but beforehand you want to know what will be the impact. You can do this by building a scenario, which was previously shown by Vincent, and select these specific products to say, okay, if I want to increase my price with 5%, but what will be the margin impact or what will be the revenue impact based on the customer behavior of these type of products? As you can see on the right side in the animation, is that you can see this impact on a certain product group level, but even on a product level, but also on a customer level, you can see what happens for this specific product. Another question you could have is, when handling thousands of products for customers in different regions, what price strategy would work best? We have many customers that sell in different sales regions, and they want to know what will be the difference in customer behavior between Germany and the Netherlands. And it could be different, so that's why you want to split the data, do separate analysis on that, and also want to test the differences and the test in impact for your price or sales increase or decrease. So that's what you can do in Simpson as well. Another one is which products have the highest data quality and what do I need to increase the data quality? I think one of the cool things in Simpson is that you can see the data quality per product. So if you have thousands of products uploaded in Simpson, it gives directly an insight in what is the data quality to use this product for optimization. So to use it for revenue optimization or for margin optimization. If you don't have the right data quality, so if it's less than 0.35, that's the minimum score we use for data quality, Then we also give you insights in how can you increase this data quality. For example, to do more experiments to get more variance in your data, or also if you don't have enough data, maybe you can combine it with another product, or maybe you should just wait to get more sales. So these kind of smart recommendations we give in the interface. And besides that, of course, the products with the highest data quality, they're already suitable for optimization or analysis. So that's what you get in our interface as well. And of course, if you're a pricing manager and really focused on the margin, then insights on elasticity are highly important and highly interesting. You want to know which products are inelastic and which products are elastic. Yeah, in the previous webinar, we shortly explained what is elasticity. It is the relation between the demand and the price. So if the product is really elastic, then the consumer is also sensitive for price changes. So you want to be very cautious with inelastic products if you want to do experiments. You want to be very cautious with elastic products, because if you dare have a price increase or decrease, it can have a big impact on your sales and revenue. But for the inelastic products, which are less sensitive, you can experiment a little bit faster to increase your margin. So these kind of questions you can answer as a pricing manager, but also on other aspects. If we go to the next slides, we can give you insights. For example, in relation to positioning, if you're an e-commerce manager or a manager that's really into the outside look of the organization, you want to know what is my current price position. Nowadays, our technology makes it possible to get all the data from Google. So you get in one interface in Simpson, you get an overview of what is your current price position, but also what are new competitors popping up in the market, and what are your biggest competitor and how are they ranked in Google. And if you know that, if also the data quality for these competitors is good enough, you can Simpson enables you to automatically price based on these competitors. So if you always want to be the second in the market or the cheapest in the market, Simpson also offers you the technology to automatically position yourself as the required position. Key question in relation to your assortment. At Simpson we have also users like category management users. They are really responsible, of course, for managing their assortment or managing the category, and they also want to discover new insights in how can I grow my assortment, how can I grow my sales. That's what you can do with Simpson as well. For example, you want to know what kind of products are performing in the same niche but compared to each other. So what are similar products that you can compare, and also what is the competition level of these products. That's what you can discover with Simpson. And also with our scenario feature, you can build custom scenarios. So you can zoom in on specific customer groups. You can zoom in on certain brands or certain suppliers to quickly detect what are, for example, the fast movers, what are the slow movers, but also more in a category management matrix terms. You can discover what are the winners in your assortment. So what are the products which have the highest revenue, but also the highest margin, and what kind of products do need extra attention. So what are the products that are highly effective for promotion. These kind of insights you can get with building scenarios, with analyzing your products based upon these scenarios. And that's also what you see here in the interface. So these are a couple of insights and questions Simpson can answer for you if you're more on an operational management level. Right now, for the last part of the webinar, I will give the floor to Vincent again to talk about the data maturity model.
Thanks, Arjen. So as we have discussed in the first webinar we had, we follow a certain maturity model of your data to get to the highest results, and that is for us to achieve a position where you have genius dynamic pricing, and that is where your data model is built per product, and that you have the ability to execute any strategy on your products based on what suits best, determined by the strategy, of course, that you have inside your business. So the webinar we have today focuses on the first step. And the first step is then in the data maturity, also the insights learned, and a quarter percentage of all businesses, what research have shown is that a quarter of the businesses are in this area, what means that they have the data already inside their business, or it's stored somewhere, maybe it's not accessible yet, or they cannot use it already to generate some insights and make choices on it. So this is the first step. So this is also quite easy to start using software like Simpson, for instance, to start this trial, right? Because the only thing what you need to do is in this point is make the data accessible, start collecting it, and make it fishable and interpretable to execute strategies upon them. Once you have achieved this step, then we go to the second step, and this is where a lot of businesses, of course, are, because these two positions together is 2/3 of the market. And what we see here, for what we do here, is that we can start collecting also external sources. So we use like competitor data and other stuff, other data positions and values to start calculating other price positions, and then also already getting a more dynamic position in generating your prices. And then eventually we move towards the pricing engine. And in the pricing engine, we have mapped cost structures, we have external data sources, we have internal data sources, and we start building a pricing engine so that we can always optimize prices without losing any percentages of margin, also if there's a change in cost structure. And eventually, of course, if we have obtained all these positions, then we get to the genius dynamic pricing position, and that is the one I just told in the beginning of the sheet. So if you start with, of course, this pricing insights, as we said, the basis of pricing insights is having access to different data sources so that you can start generating collecting data and then generating these insights so that you can make choices upon that. And what you see here is the model, how we look at it, right? So what we see is there's a lot of interconnection between different data points in your company that determine the relation between certain values that are available. So we have, if we start with, for instance, what you see here, this is the internal data. So what you can see is product groups, prices, margins, etc. And these are often stored in systems that you already have in place. And what we see, if you look at a bit of small and medium enterprises, then they have a few systems where this data is located. And if you have bigger corporations, some are really organized in, for instance, SAP. So they have a lot of information already in their ERP system. And sometimes it's all over the place. So then we have to make multiple API connections to pull the data in, but it's no issue, of course. Beside the internal data, we have the external data. And finally, of course, we pull in also the product positioning, so the product groups, the promotions, the quality of the product, the brand positioning, etc. And then we start combining these data points to find patterns and make nice price points. So if you look at the obstacles, what we discussed in the beginning, what kind of obstacles do business encounter by adopting AI or a tool as Simpson? What we have tried to do is to eliminate all these barriers that you see here. And I will give you some examples how we did that. So for instance, 57% said that it was difficult to hire new staff with the right skills. So what we see, if you want to apply data science and data insights, you have to build software for it. You need data scientists and data engineers to achieve a certain position that you can really extract value out of this, out of the software and out of the data that you are using. So what we did is we built a drag and drop system where you can drag and drop the different strategies that you want to build. So you don't need data scientists and you don't need software engineers to start working with a tool that applies data science. The second obstacle that we saw is that the cost of adoption. So what we have tried to do is make it very accessible and low in cost to start working with it. So what we do is we connect the API, and once your data is clean and it's in the system, we can start running the operation within 2 weeks. So this is a very low investment that you can make to start using to start using a tool as Simpson. The next step is the cost of adaptation on the operational process. So as what we said is our focus is to move towards a desired future position where you enable hyperlearning in your organization. So the combination of the knowledge that you guys already have about your domain and our knowledge that we have about making these models, of course, these algorithms, and we combine those two. So by combining our technical knowledge and developments and your domain knowledge, we already find a quick way to collaborate within the software we have developed. And that's why the adoption of the software and adopted in a operational process is actually very quickly set. And that is one of the best results and reactions that we get from clients today. And the final one is the lack of skills among assisting staff. So by having this drag and drop setup and generating these data insights, we actually already set up shop to guide you towards the direction what you can achieve with your product portfolio. So the skills are more or less already trained by Simpson through Simpson, and this is also the way how we cope with this obstacle. So, of course, what we always like to do is to personalize the demos that we can give for companies who are really interested in start using software like Simpson or to optimize prices. So if you want to have a demo about how this could work for your business, then you can go to simpson.com/demo. It's underneath in the screen where you see in the green. There you can go to a web page and we can book directly an appointment for you to have a first demo together. And the other option that we, of course, supply is that you can just scan the QR code that you see here in the screen. Then you go to my LinkedIn and send me an invitation. I think most of you are already sending the invitation if you joined this webinar. And if you have any questions, just send me a message. If you want a demo, you can also send me a message, and then we will pick a date out of the in the chat, and we'll set up a meeting there. So then we move towards the questions and the answers, of course, that we want to give. So if there are any questions, please use the chats on LinkedIn and YouTube and the other channels that are available to shoot in some questions. We're happy to answer them.
Cool. In the meantime, I saw already some questions popping up. One of the questions was, what does Simpson default user look like? Is it more C-level or a manager? I think we previously discussed the previous roles, Vincent.
Yeah.
The CFO, the CEO, but also the pricing manager, category manager, and the e-commerce manager. And to answer that question, to give a first insight on that question is, it really depends. I think most of the users are on a management level. So they start giving us the data and they analyze the data based on the responsibilities they have. But it's often used in conversations or meetings with the board. So if a CFO wants to know how to change the pricing model or how to increase the margin, you see that already scenarios are made or analysis already made by the pricing manager or the e-commerce manager or the responsible manager. So you see very broad stakeholders which could benefit from Simpson, but most of the time it's a manager that is the main user of Simpson. Another question is, what skills are needed to use Simpson? Vincent, can I give this one to you?
Sure. Yes. As what we said in the obstacles. Of course, we have an onboarding program. So if you have no skills in pricing at all, we can help you with that. So we have tutorials to explain you how our pricing strategy builder works and how you can generate new setups. And if we look at the data, so if you want to gain more knowledge about the data position that you have over the products that we can give you insights over, then each data position that is visible in Simpson is also explained. So For instance, as an example, if you want to know which data, which products have, for instance, poor data and where you want to work on to achieve a better data position, then you can just go to the data quality indicator and you click on it, and then if you click on it once, you have the top data positions of the products on top of. Then you see those first, and if you click another time, you see the ones who don't have that excellent data position, and then you directly know which one you can work with, and you can make a CSV out of each query that you run on the database. So if you want to have these insights and then visualize and then like stored somewhere so you have quick access to it, or discuss it with your colleagues, or send it around through your email, then you can just download those out of Simpson and have discussions about it and move forward on it.
Cool. I don't see any other questions yet. Maybe later more questions will pop up in the chat. Sometimes it has some delay, but yeah, in the meantime, if you have questions later, I think there's here a link below to schedule a demo. So if you want to have questions that you don't want to talk or ask in this chat because of privacy reasons, or you can always ask them in a private demo with us. Also, this webinar is visible for replay, so you can also watch it back at the time you prefer. And we are live on LinkedIn and YouTube. I think also want to invite you to take a look on our YouTube channel, because we are currently uploading a lot of videos about the new product features of Simpson, and it gives the videos give explanation of what you can do with the features and how it can help you achieve your goals in pricing. Yeah, if there are no questions more, I think we have a few minutes left for the next slide. It's about our events, upcoming events. So this was our second webinar in our webinar series. On the 22nd of September, we have a next webinar. It's about run predictions. So we will explain you everything about how you can run predictions. So predict what is the optimal price for marginal revenue with all the data you have. On the 29th of September, we will go to Utrecht in the Netherlands for the Price is Right event. We do that together with our partner of Flow Resulting. We have all kinds of pricing experts across different industries, from insurance to retail to manufacturing. It will be a very interesting event on the topic of pricing. And we still have a couple of tickets left for giveaway. So yeah, please contact Vincent or me if you want to be there. On the 27th of October, we have an event for the price engine. We will tell you everything about how Simpson can be used as a price engine to automate your prices. And on the 24th of November, it's far away, we're already in winter then, we have a webinar about the competitive pricing. So we tell you everything about the possibilities Simpson offers for getting all the data about competitors and also act on it. Yeah, if there are no further questions, we would like to thank you for your attendance. We will close the webinar with a quote. Yeah, it's a very cliche. Albert Einstein, I think most of the people know this quote: "We can solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we used when we created them." It's of course very cliche, but we want to trigger you with outside the box thinking. Yeah, it's still a very effective way to solve problems or to get new ideas. And we want to invite you to use Simpson in a demo to get triggered by new ideas and to solve problems in today's pricing process. So the new way of thinking, we would invite you to experience that with Simpson. Yeah. On behalf of Simpson, on behalf of Vincent, I really want to thank you for your time, and we will look forward to see you in real life. Have a nice day.
Right.